We are back talking positional scarcity at the shooting guard position. Welcome to the Fantasy NBA Today podcast, a sports ethos presentation hosted by yours truly, Aaron Brewski. Solo edition. Shout out Dr. A, our Hall of Famer who's recovering from surgery, and also shout out Mr. Kamla, inventor of fantasy basketball, not scheduled to do today's show. So today it's just me, myself, and I, and that's good because I can actually just go in on things and really dig into this positional scarcity at the shooting guard position and lots of really interesting stuff with this. And as we get away from point guards and even big men, that sort of 2, 3, 4, however you want to call it, I'm going to call it something else, but I'm not going to do that. That's a really interesting group. The 2, 3, especially. I really like the 2, 3. Just the game within the game of trying to figure out how to get players at these positions who do a lot, really, but they're valuable in unique ways, and we're going to kind of unpack all of that. And before we do that, let's quickly shout out our sponsor. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for all things football. BetOnline has every stat, matchup, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. Think you know your stuff? Get in on our $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of $200,000. And when the game's over, head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker. Unwind with one of our over 150 slots. Head to the website today to get on the action. Bet online. The game starts here. Yeah. Positional scarcity at the shooting guard position. I am going to get into tears. I am going to cry on air now. I'm going to basically, with you guys, try to find these pockets of value and sort of let you know when and where it's okay to be excited about drafting from this position, and then try to just to kind of navigate, like, how long can we wait? Where do we need to jump? And looking at the overall picture, it's a little bit light. It's a lot light this season. That might signal to you that you need to go out and get a good shooting guard. That said, risks all over the place. We're going to dive into all of it. And at the top of this ADP tier, oh, by the way, before we get into this, one last thing here. We want to get your guys' questions. We want to find out what you're thinking. And the way to get your question answered on air is to reply to any promo tweet for this show. So if you reply to that promo tweet from at NBA Fantasy, or pardon me, at Ethos Fantasy NBA, you will get good chance of having your question answered on air. And that also helps us kind of figure out where you guys are at with the pulse of things. And your feedback is great. It's been awesome. And we just thank you guys so much for your support in all the things that you do. Positional scarcity. Shooting guard positions. First of all, positionality in fantasy leagues, it's kind of everything. I always crack up when a platform decides one season that they're just going to wholesale change the way that they handle their positions. It's, format is everything. Settings are everything. The ability to have a guy that plays all 4 positions changes the game. Some platforms, there's so much positional eligibility, applied to players that it becomes something of a stat set melding project. We actually play in a couple leagues where there are no position designations at all. It's like 13 flex spots. And then you yourself have to try to craft your team based on fantasy players and what they bring to the table. And so it's always interesting how we kind of are forced to put people into buckets. And in this particular bucket of shooting guards, the tiers are small and there's not a lot of players in them. As we go through these tiers, you're going to be thinking to yourself, God, I hope I don't draft in tier 5 for a shooting guard. But what if you can't get a player that's good from this list? Well, the good news is that there are a lot of players that shoot threes now. There are a lot of players that kind of function like shooting guards. So hopefully, if you don't get good players on this list, that you're able to find those stats somewhere else. And you can find a lot of those options of out of position stats guys in our draft guide, which is live. Our Brewski 150 is live for Sports Ethos 360 subscribers. So get to the website and check that out. Get signed up and all that good stuff. Okay, in our first tier, I honestly think that this should be the Anthony Edwards tier and nobody else. But we got Donovan Mitchell in it as well. ADP for Edwards is a really weird thing right now. I've heard of him going way higher than the 13 that his ADP is right now, and I think that people are really kind of at odds with the Anthony Edwards situation. I mean, he had so much usage last season. The question that comes up with Anthony Edwards is how much better can he be? Like, how can he take the leap and be a top 5 fantasy guy? And people are looking at, declines in steals numbers and like that question of, okay, you came out as rookie, you said you want to get the ball a lot, you wanted to lead the league in steals, and you really focused on defense. Can you do all of the things? Can you be a top usage guy in the league? Can you be an efficient, dare I say, Michael Jordan-esque kind of a player? Can you be all of the things for all of the people? I mean, you're competing against the Wembys, you're competing against the Jokic's, you're competing against the Shai Gilgeous-Alexanders, you're competing against the Lucas who do everything. Can you do it, Anthony Edwards? And this low ADP, it sort of reflects these questions. And maybe you got Julius Randle to contend with. Can you do all of the things, Anthony Edwards? That's the question. But I do think he does not belong in the same tier as Donovan Mitchell, who's going around 17 right now. As we go into tier 2, 3, 4, you're going to see how valuable this Anthony Edwards tier is. And look, this isn't me saying, look, draft Anthony Edwards at all costs. I mean, you really got to think about what you're doing with your team. You got to think about where you're drafting it. If you're in 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 9, there are big questions in this area of the draft. The Brewski 150 fleshes all of them out, but big questions. Anthony Edwards, where does he go? And are you paying for what is already his peak value? From what we saw last season, is their ability to go up and beyond what we've seen last season? And is there any risk for the Minnesota Timberwolves in general? Like, there's 2 warring factions of ownership. They just made a less than great trade. And I personally wouldn't trade for Karl-Anthony Towns. I don't think he's worth the contract. I don't think people should be giving stuff to get Karl-Anthony Towns, but also there are a lot of bad GMs out there who will do that. So I don't know that getting Julius Randle in a protected first-round pick, not to mention one of my favorite players in the league, Dante DiVincenzo, and one of the best contracts in the league, that's the best part of this deal. But that's kind of it. And to me, Julius Randle's a negative to your basketball team. I don't know that a take-turns offense between Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle is going to do the trick for them. I think they pushed themselves backwards with this deal. But they did it, and Anthony Edwards is going to be the man. This is how much irritant is there in the form of Julius Randle? How much does this weird things out on this basketball team? Anyway, he's a clear number 1 tier, and as you see as we go through these tiers, you're going to see how much far ahead he is than so many other players that are next on this list. All right, Donovan Mitchell. My thing with Donovan Mitchell this season is, with a lot of big name players that don't play a lot of games, the question always becomes, when will that change? We just saw it with Anthony Davis this last season, and he just got 76 games. Monster in fantasy leagues. Donovan Mitchell, same type of potential, maybe not as much as an Anthony Davis, but this is a guy who has to play 70 games at some point. That's the reason why you draft Donovan Mitchell this year. That's it. I mean, it really does boil down to that. Is he tired of being a rest guy? He might be one of the best poster childs for the load management era that there is. Is he tired of that? He's got his money. Cleveland's his team. This is all his show. There's nothing more for him to prove in that respect. Now it's just time for him to go out there and do it. That's why you draft Donovan Mitchell this season. It could go wrong. It's a tough spot to draft in, but he's that good. He has that potential. He has top 8 fantasy potential if he could just play 70 games. So he's the back end of the tier. He should be in his own tier. Tier 2, and actually, I'd put him in this tier ADP tier 2 that we have right now. Devin Booker, Kyrie Irving, Donovan Mitchell, Devin. In fact, I'm making an official change. I'm putting Ant into his own tier, and I'm bringing Donovan Mitchell down into ADP tier number 2 with Devin Booker and Kyrie Irving. Devin Booker's so boring. He is so boring. Even his interviews, like, he says all the right things. He's dating a Kardashian, or was dating a Kardashian, and he makes it seem normal. He's just a straight shooter, that Devin Booker. And he literally is a straight shooter. He goes out and he just makes his buckets. And if he's going to play a lot of games, of course, that's going to bump his value up to kind of beyond where he's being drafted. But you have a lot of players that need basketballs in their hands. Devin Booker has a lot of basketball left in him. So there are pretexts for him to take games off again. There's no sense in burning him out in the middle of this season when everybody knows they wagered the farm to get a championship. So I think this is it's the same exact thing we've been working with Devin Booker for years now. And he's going at that price, and it's a fine price, and there's a good chance that he's going to make his ADP. There's additional risk, sure, but at least you know what you're getting with him when he's on the floor. So there's that. Kyrie Irving, to me, might be the most interesting of the three. The much maligned Kyrie Irving, who was kind of a do not touch guy for a good solid 2 to 3 years there. Happy Kyrie Irving in an organization that's embraced him. And dare I say, Kyrie Irving has been kind of a breath of fresh air, at least on the basketball floor. I mean, to his credit, he hasn't opened his mouth and said anything truly offensive or, stupid for a while. Maybe just Kyrie, so maybe something clicked with him. I don't know. All I know is he looks happy on the basketball floor. When they were getting beat up in the playoffs, he was doing all the right things that you would want a veteran to do in response to it. And maybe he could have shot the ball a little bit more. That was a criticism during the playoffs. But that said, I mean, he was like a model teammate. And the only reason he didn't have a better finish in fantasy leagues was a freak accident. Having, I believe it was, what's his name? Fell on his legs, center for the Mavs. Blanking on his name right now. If not for that, he would have played a lot of games. I'm sure Andre's going to just laugh at me in the chat. Can't even remember his name. Who's the starting center for the Dallas Mavericks, Andre? Kyrie Irving. No, it's not Gafford. It's Lively. Of course it's Lively. Was he the one that fell on his legs, though? I can't remember who fell on his legs, but not Kyrie Irving's issue. It was bad. He should have been out a lot longer than he was. And if he wasn't hit like that, he would have had a great season. And the question becomes, is Kyrie Irving turning the corner on games missed issues? Exciting. Well, way more exciting than Devin Booker. And in that same ballpark as Donovan Mitchell, in the sense that as long as he plays games, he is going to catapult past his ADP. But look, overall, if you're drafting Donovan Mitchell or Devin Booker or Kyrie Irving in the second round, you have heartburn no matter what, because all these guys have missed games. They're very good. But when you're drafting in the second round, you're hoping to get comfort. You're hoping to get, stability. You're hoping that you're not worried about your second round draft pick falling off a cliff because of whatever. And that's kind of what we're dealing with as we, work through these ADP levels here, especially when we consider looking at the third tier down. Desmond Bane going around 43 right now. So there's some Desmond Bane fatigue out there. He's been so good and so underrated, and then injured, and it's kind of bounced all over the place. And then last season was the disaster in Memphis. That's why you get a 40 ADP. Now, they've sort of gotten the band back together. And yes, they're already hit by the injury bug in Memphis, but nothing too crazy yet. But Desmond Bane at 43.3, everything's great, right? Everything's great except for the part about the injury risk that's dogging the players that are in this second tier. And you get that same injury risk with Desmond Bain, but you get way less of the upside, way less of the pop. With Ja Morant back, he's now second fiddle again. You got Marcus Smart that might play a bigger role unless he's on his way out. It seems to be the kind of a local rumor there. But even if Marcus Smart was out, you got a lot of players who are going to need the ball in their hand, assuming they don't all get hurt. But as long as Jaw's there, Bane is second fiddle. He's probably more of a third round guy on a per game basis with Jaw back than a second round guy. And you got the injury risk. So it's tough. Tier 2 and tier 3 are tough. Really, you're kind of making the case for drafting Anthony Edwards because the tiers 2 and 3 are so tough that you're either sort of punting on this shooting guard position as a whole and trying to go down this list and trying to find value later in drafts, or you're shooting for the big dog. Okay. Next up, it is ice pick in your eye trivia time after the break. Okay, we're back. Producer Andre Lemos is going to kill me. Going to kill me. I swear. I can't do the read correctly at all. Which NBA player has the most minutes in the last 10 years is the question. Apparently, I'll get 7 chances, I think, is the standard here for how many shots I get here. Which NBA player has the most minutes in the last 10 years? This is a good one. 10 years. It's a big sample. So we're in we just had the 2023 season. So that goes back to what, the 2014 to 15 season. Looking for most minutes in the last 10 years. Okay. Somebody, I mean, if I get 7 shots, this is where I'm kind of learning how to beat the game here because 7 shots means I can kind of just scatter these around. Like if I don't use one on LeBron James, it's pointless. It's pointless. And here's the thing. If it was LeBron, that would be way too easy. So I know it's not going to be LeBron. But let me just get that off the board. LeBron James. Hey, I can hear the buzzer again. That's awesome. But it's not awesome that I'm wrong. A lot of minutes. I would want to go like KD or something. Yeah, it is awesome to be wrong. Every missed shot is making me closer to a make. This is a shooting guards episode, folks. These shooting guards, they have like full season streaks. They shoot 45% one year and then 36 the next. No, KD is not my guess. KD is he had too many years off there, too many seasons busted up. I mean, this is about longevity, and this is about big minutes. I start thinking about Tom Thibodeau. What's Tom Thibodeau's teams been up to? Who's been on Tom Thibodeau's teams? Well, there's a little problem with that, and that he runs his players into the ground, as evidenced by Derrick Rose, who retired the other day. I'm getting a hint. It's taking one of my players off the board, kind of, because I don't think he's played that long. It's got to be a player who's been in the league for 10 years because it's too competitive. If you're in the league for 9 years, you lose this discussion. So it's an old dude, and I was thinking of somebody, but I don't think I can do it because I don't think he has enough games played. It's got to be an old player who's played a lot of games. I feel like this is like a trick question. I feel like I'm going to throw a really, really wild one out there. Yeah, I will take my time, Andre. I will. As long as there's no Antetokounmpo shot clock on me, I'll just sit here and talk all day. But no, this is a weird one. Kind of feel like maybe his games played number is just super high. I'm going to go with Nick Vucevic. Vooch. This isn't right, but yeah, no, it's not right. I had to get weird with one of them. Who's good? Who is good? That's been playing for 10 seasons. 10 seasons. Tip, my second answer was terrible, and it's not that position. Okay. Well, I got something out of that. Second answer was terrible, and it's not that position. So centers are off the board. Yeah, like part of me wanted to play or go with like Chris Paul or something, but that's not it. He's too injury prone. And then I'm thinking like, you know, who who has been good for a long time? Who has been good for a long time? And it ain't LeBron, and it definitely ain't Anthony Davis, and it ain't in the last 10 years. Ugh. These questions are brutal. They just are absolutely brutal. I am so annoyed. It's like somebody like Clay Thompson. Clay Thompson. Give me Clay Thompson. But he had the ace, he had the Achilles, and that's absent that would have been a good guess. Okay. So who's played the most minutes over the last 10 seasons? All right. All right. 10 seasons? 10 seasons. When was Jason Tatum drafted? That's a good question. When was Jason Tatum? I mean, Jaylen Brown for that matter, but Jason Tatum hasn't really missed games. All right, I'm going to go Jason Tatum since I'm just talking about it. So 2017, all right, then that's wrong. Give me my X, that's wrong. 2017. Really? 2017. Jerk ass. I guess I get a tip. All right, let's see it. Lead me to the promised land, Andre. Lead me to the promised land. Lord knows I need the help. This player is a master on an art that is dying in the NBA. This player is an incredible entry pass guy. He's an entry pass guy. He's like, oh my God. No, that's not right. I can't do it because you know who's a really good entry pass guy? This isn't my guess, but a really good entry pass guy is Nick Batum. But no, that's not the right answer. It'd be funny if he eked his way with his 25 minutes in the last couple of years. If he eked his way to the top of that list, but that's not right. Master of an art that is dying in the NBA. So he's like a post guy. I'm getting threatened that if I don't answer quickly, Batum's the answer. See the stuff I deal with over here, people? Master on an art that's dying in the NBA. So that's gotta be like post play. Who's the master of the post? And it's not a center. My goodness. Not a center. He's a master of an art that's dying. Like layups dying. All right, well, give me Batum so I can hear the buzzer. What's that? Five misses? 5 misses. I had to take Nick Batum. He's probably not in the top 500. An art that's dying in the NBA. Another tips on the way. Lord knows I need it. But like seriously, the art that's dying, that's got to be the post play. This player was almost an NBA champion. It's almost an NBA champion. Okay, losers. Dallas. They're losers. Sorry, Dallas, you're losers. I don't think it's any of those guys. No. But he was also a part of the reason for that team to become an NBA champion. Oh. Oh. Oh, hey. I probably should have gotten this. Okay. I'll take New Sacramento King, DeMar DeRozan. Shower me with praise. Shower me. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. It's been such an honor to take 6 times to get the damn question right. Doc, I'm coming for you. I'm coming for you, man. I hope you're feeling better over there. And I hate that I got that right too. Now you got to deal with me all week long. Okay. Tier 4. Let's do it. Okay, this tier has got B150 written all over. B150 available for Ethos 360 subscribers right now. Go to sportsethos.com, blah, 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 blah. Derek White. Man, Derek White last season, we were talking about trying to do some things here where, infamously, famously, I don't know, I can't type. So I have to do all of my data entry via Zoom with Andre. And so he's like basically my hands. And so we're just talking hoops forever. And the joke is that we should have these things recorded. So that's, so we could like cut certain things that are said because they're great. Like, we're making these big bets, right? And it's like, okay, say something to Andre. Like when Jalen Johnson hit last season, I was just going nuts and I was just making all sorts of crazy predictions and, shouting at the top of my lungs, literally shouting into the microphone because I'm so damn excited about it, right? Nobody's going to get this. We're going to have it, blah, 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 blah. Same thing with Derek White. So when Drew Holiday got traded to Boston, I just started salivating. I'm like, we're going to zig when everybody else zags on this. And the thought process there was that Derek White was not only just good, but it was going to be such a boon to his defensive value that this was just a gimme. And so he started dropping like a rock. He went down to 80. I got Derek White on every single team. It felt like, out of 30 teams, I want to say like 25 had Derek White on them. Beautiful stuff. And Mikal Bridges, the other guy. Now, Mikal didn't do as good. Last year, I was way too ahead or way too high on him, and it sucked, except for the fact that my ranks are based on Roto, not head-to-head. A lot of people drafted him in head-to-head, and they paid the price much more than the Roto folks. Roto folks got a 4th-round value instead of a 2nd-round value. You're getting him in the 2nd round, you get 4th-round value, you live to fight another day. It doesn't hurt your team, doesn't kill your team. In a head-to-head, that hurt. But these guys, especially Bridges, he's been a B150 mainstay. He's just been like printing money, just easy, love it. And so they formed tier 4. This is where I'm actually starting to be happy with value. I think both are safe if you're getting them in this range, close to 50. White has potential beyond that. Bridges, I don't think this move with Julius Randle heading out and everything opening up, a lot of people are pushing Bridges up, saying this is a big win for him. I just think it changes the dynamic of how he produces. And I think it's kind of the same value as he was with those guys here, which is a 4th, 5th round value. So I think he's a safe play. I think White is probably a safe play. He's had some injury history, and that's always got to be a cause for concern. But honestly, it's funny that Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown get all the love, and I think this team is funny in the sense that, like, how do you pick which guy is the best player? Everybody just sort of crowns Jason Tatum as that guy, and I'm like, I don't know, because I think in the playoffs, Jaylen Brown was the one that carried that team, and then when they just won, and speaking more about that Warriors loss, but like in this most recent win, this championship, is like Derek White or Drew Holiday were the best players. I don't know why Jason Tatum just gets easily crowned to be the best player on that team. Doesn't make any sense. Anyway, tier 4, good. I like it. Tier 5, Zach LaVine, 67.2, Cam Thomas, 74.6, and Tyler Hero, 74.8. Now, Cam Thomas is the apple of a lot of people's eyes. In a head-to-head league, good luck. If he's out there in the playoffs for your fantasy squad, you dodged a lot of bullets. You're Neo. And then at that rate, you probably did a good thing. And I don't know at this price if you did a good thing. I'm not sure he can produce at a top 75 level, given the deficiencies in his game. I love Cam Thomas, the player. He reminds me of Isaiah Thomas, the second version. Low to the ground, strong, great first step, practically impossible to cover. He was asked the other day who could cover him. He's like, nobody. He's not being brash. I think he's right. I don't think anybody can cover him. I mean, maybe some of the best defenders in the league could probably cover him, but they're going to be far and few between. And the difference between he and IT2, who was rather uncoverable at his prime, is Cam Thomas is even stronger. So you got that. Levine coming off injury, really looking humbled. I think he understands the score of the game. I think he understands that this season is not the year to be barking about who he is and how good he is and demanding this and demanding that. I think he knows his trade value around the league is not great. I think he knows that his future is sort of in peril if he can't stay healthy. I think he's ready to take on a kind of 1B, even a second offensive player role. I think it's a really interesting dynamic there. He's being drafted as big name Zach Levine, but I don't think he views himself as big name Zach Levine. I don't think he will be deployed as big name Zach Levine. I think that means he's going to be overdrafted, and that's before you consider the injury risk. I don't think he's got this in his game. I don't think he's got top 40 play in his game anymore. His game is predicated on athleticism. He's been getting away with having subpar athleticism in his context and being able to get off shots and being able to have 30+ point games. But being a great shooter is even as great as he is as a shooter, parts of the decline in the athleticism will eventually hit the shooting, but he's not going to get those shots year after year. He's just not. So he's going to have to rework his game into something else. And it's going to be interesting to see how he morphs as a player, but he can't produce at this level. And then you have the injury risk. And then you have Tyler Hero. If he can stay on the floor, maybe he can be a top 75 guy. Maybe he could be a top 50 guy. But that's a little bit of a indictment right there. We're asking maybes on a guy that can't clear the 60 game mark very, very often. That Tyler Hero. So tier 5, I don't like it at all. And that means that we're sitting on, out of 5 tiers that we've talked about right now, 2, 3, and 5, I'm not thrilled with. So our player pool at this position is not great. So we got to be thinking, how are we going to deal with this? How are we going to deal with it in drafts? Tier 6, Devin Vassell going at 70.4. Now, he's got recent injury news, so that should fall. CJ McCollum right around 80. Bradley Beal right around 80. Austin Reeves at about 85. Anthony Simons about 89. Look, Vassell, that was bad news. I looked into the injury, as I tend to do, being a blurb guy at heart. And yeah, if they were going to have him, if they're reevaluating him in 4 weeks, that means that 8 and 12 weeks are on the table. That means an additional month off, and that means an additional 2 months off, possibly. And then what does this do to the Spurs season? Does this mean that they go, oh boy, we're kind of now angling toward tanking? I don't know that Vassell is the reason that they would just kind of do that, but it's strike 1 and maybe strike 2. So we'll see how that all plays out. And that has broader implications. I think we all can agree that Vassell's value kind of went in the tank. And I think you just have to decide, look, if you want to have one less roster spot that's active for 1 month and you think you can navigate that and he falls into the late rounds, okay, maybe that becomes a thing. If you can't do that, though, if you start thinking, okay, I'm going to stash 2 other, every roster spot you lose is kind of, it lowers your ability to be able to stash, be able to work with your roster, and especially if you're streaming and into daily formats where you've really got to milk all of the value that you can out of players. These injury guys can rot your team. So Vassell's a no for me. McCollum, I can see some angles here where everything's lining up so badly for him, and that maybe he's the guy that's on his way out, that maybe he's so undervalued that he can come in and outproduce his ADP currently at 80. And when he's going well at this stage of his career, he can be a top 50 guy. So there's some room here. I'm just not thrilled about chasing it. I'm just not thrilled that he can be the guy to go get it. A lot of things could happen that work in his favor, but I feel like I can do better at this stage of the draft than CJ McCollum. And somebody's going to draft him based on name. So yeah, I'm out on that. Bradley Beal. The one thing I'll say about Bradley Beal last year is Beal sort of fell into my lap, I don't know, in 5 different spots. And it really sucked because, where I drafted him, I want to say 5th round last year, it was fine, the value, the risk and all that. he just had sort of a worst case scenario for the entire season. He's getting back from injury and he re-injures himself. Okay, now I'm gonna like keep climbing the ladder and I'm gonna get back on the floor. And finally he got healthy. And then he jumps on a three and somebody goes and closes out underneath him, and boom, he gets hit again. So there's some bit of this Bradley Beal can't stay on the floor talk from last season that's a little bit of an outlier. So wrap that up into whatever you want to wrap that up into. He's a little bit undervalued in that respect. Now, the team dynamic, his overall injury history, the fact that they don't probably, I mean, they should be trying to win games in the regular season, but the how much they bet to get this roster and what they gave up, I think that you almost absolutely have to be healthy in the playoffs. And I think that means all these guys are bigger rest risks rather than not. And so Bradley Beal to me is still overvalued, still getting that name recognition. I don't think that, you can trust him after a season like he had, not based on the ankle, but based on the mid body stuff, the hamstring stuff, and just the fact that, he had a major injury, early in his career. And this kind of stuff, it works its way throughout the chain of the body. And it's kind of no surprise that, especially during those Scott Brooks years, that he got overrun. He was playing like 37 minutes a game for a terrible Wizard squad. And it just is, his body is breaking. So I think I'm out on Bradley Beal all the way, no matter what. Austin Reeves, I think, is a great pick in this range. Lots of upside. I think he's going to be, good again this season. I think there's levels to his game. It's LA, so there's, weird issues that are going to be all over the place. But of this tier, he might be my only player I'd be okay drafting. Anthony Simons at 88.7. Love the player. He might be the guy that of their guard crew, if they're going to make a trade, he might be the guy. They got the other guys more on team-friendly contracts. So, maybe get out of the Anthony Simons business and clear the deck a little bit. I like Anthony Simons, a player. I think if we had that question of who the top 5 shooters in the game are, somehow Anthony Simons got on that list. That was not my read on his talent coming into the league out of the draft. I don't think anybody saw this coming, or maybe they did and I just missed it, but he is that guy. The defensive stats are an issue. He needs to be kind of full volume Anthony Simons to make this work. And the big deal is that in the last third of the season, he just might not play. He might not be with the team, but he might not play. And that's the reality here. So no, I'm not in on Anthony Simons. It sucks because I like the way he plays. I got a question. It looks like with these two, Green and Poole, we are 17 shooting guards, so about 16 of 100 out of 100 ADP slots. It's basically the question's stating kind of like this is, out of these top 100 plays, we have 17 shooting guards, including Vassell, in this mix. And I guess that's, hey, 5 positions, 100 players, 20 per position, but this is a pretty low number. It's not a fifth. It's 16% to be accurate. So is shooting guard a position to target early on? Are you comfortable with one of these later guys? That's what we're going to evaluate here as we go through ADP tier 7, 8, and it looks like 9 and 10. I almost sang the letter 9. Like 9. ADP tier 7. Let's see if we can find some value here, because honestly, this sucks. This sucks. This whole thing sucks. What are we going to do about it? Jalen Green at 94, Jordan Poole at 96. Look, Jordan Poole might do Jordan Poole things and completely pool his way out of this thing. But at this ADP, and I'm surprised it's this low because there are a lot of analysts. There are a ton of analysts that went huge on Jordan Poole last year, and it just was not there. And I do feel like there is in the market, there's a kind of a rebound effect, a wishing it would have happened last year and kind of going for it a second year. There's also an alternate, like, I'm not going back there effect. But I do think, there's nothing in Jordan Poole's way theoretically for him to, to stop him from being good. But Yet the ADP is stupid low. Because honestly, at 100, Jordan Poole is legitimately a guy that should play a lot of basketball games. I had him rated an 8 cat in the B150, not last year, but the year before, at around 40, I want to say. And he started off all kind of, lackadaisical, and he'd just been knocked out by Draymond Green. And, people were bumming and like, should I drop Jordan Poole? And he finished at the top 58 cat value. He's built for 8 cat, not 9 cat, not in Washington Wizards land. He might have been the answer to the turnover question earlier, if not whoever won. I forget who was the answer to the turnover question in last Ice Pick in Your Eye trivia. I can't even remember. Also can't remember my own name or what day it is. These are problems. Trae Young, I'm told, was the turnover guy. I got that one right, actually. But Jordan Poole, like 96.5. Look, in a 9 cat league, if you don't want to do this, because in a 9 cat league, he might be, a top 90 guy. So you're sort of getting the value of the ADP. You're getting an equal money guy. And then there's also the what if Jordan Poole falls off the deep end question. What if it all goes to hell in Washington? What if they tank? Blah, blah, blah. 9 cat, I get it. But at 8 cat, this is an easy yes. Easy yes. And if Washington's smart, they just put him on the ball and get out of the way. If you paid the guy, theoretically, it'll help you lose games. Do it. Jalen Green's the other in this list. And I think Jalen Green is a faith-based play. I think you need to draft Jalen Green on faith, not on numbers, not on anything but faith in his talent. Talent finds a way. It just does. This team is loaded in Houston. And when you look at the pure numbers involved, the risk reward doesn't look great with Jalen Green. And you look at, like, how's this actually going to work? Will they ever pry the ball from Alperen Şengün's cold, dead hands? No, they're not going to do that, because that's the reason you have that guy on the floor. You don't have him on the floor for his defense. You have him on the floor because he's a beast and he just pivots his way to victory. Jalen Green's game requires that guy to get out of the paint, and it's really, he looks amazing, Jalen Green. We're talking about a number one option on offense, Jalen Green. That's out there for him. I think the hope, if you're drafting Jalen Green, is that talent wins the day, that Houston maybe gets a little bit out of the Şengün business a little bit. I don't know how they're going to do it, but maybe they find a way. And then, or if they decide, because here's the thing, if you're Houston, you can't do both things unless you find a way to integrate these guys and make it work and really, really focus on that. And you can't do that with Fred VanVleet around. And you can't do that, with a stacked roster where the third team could be the second team on any number of teams. Dylan Brooks ain't giving up the ball. You got other players that need to be developed as well. If you're going to make Jalen Green work with Alperen Şengün, do it from day one. Let them play a two-man game all game long until they figure it out. And they're just not going to do that. So my sense is that Jalen Green, man, some team out there is going to get a value. But if you're Houston, man, make the deal. Make it happen. Get something for it before you have to, kind of part ways on bad terms. So I like this tier. I do. I think this is where you can start to focus if you're a little bit unhappy with the tiers ahead. I think you could focus on that tier. ADP tier 8's got Bogdan at 100, Caruso at 105, and Clay at 108. I actually like this tier as well. I think Bogdanović isn't going to have the season that he had last season. That'd be asking a guy with significant injury history to play the same amount of games that he played last year, which was 79, I believe. He's more of a 72 game guy if things go well. That would even give him a little bit of value here, because he's still going fairly late. It just depends on the ADP data. Who knows? Like, this is a lot of public leagues. As I mentioned in many times in many places, this ADP data is terrible. If you're in an intermediate league where everybody knows their stuff, I think Bogdan goes a little bit earlier. And then it becomes a tougher question. If he's going at 80, if he's going at 70, I think you start to kind of lose the value there. Caruso, 105.3. I think Caruso is going to have top 100 value this season. I don't know if it's going to be pretty. I mean, he might take some games off, but I mean, this is a guy who can get it done in 23 minutes. I think it's going to be tough for a lot of head-to-head players who, really need pop, out of the more poppy numbers. I think it might be more difficult for folks there. And if your league only values top 75 players for whatever reason, you play, a 10-team league where only the top 75 plays, or you got a games cap thing, and you're just like, playing with people who don't read anything, and you just need a top 75 play all the time, then Caruso is going to be harder, I think. But in a deeper league scenario, I like Caruso. Clay, I watched a lot of Clay, and I've been a Warriors fan my whole life. Clay was in his head last season, so the question is can Clay get out of his head this season? And what I find interesting about this one is I really do think it is a question of that, because statistically there's really not a great case for Clay to be super good, to be a top 75 play or anything like that. But there is this what if, because Luka, his passing, even if the defense does shade towards Clay, saying, hey, Clay, we think you're a one-trick pony, we're going to just pre-rotate to your zone, and that's going to be that. Even if that's the case, they can make it work. Luka's got enough of passing arsenal, and his passes are so fast, and they're so on the letters that give it a gap of space, and they can make it work. And by the way, they have other players on the floor to make this easier to do. So maybe, just maybe, Klay Thompson becomes a three-point machine again, and that makes him a top 75 player, a top 60 play. There's this little what if factor with Klay. Everything else is really tough. I mean, I think getting out of his head and seeing the Kyrie Irving effect in Dallas, seeing it feels like Luka is a fun player to play with, in the sense that the vibe around the team is good. I don't know how folks feel about standing around and watching Luka ball. That's kind of another question. But I think there's a lot of smiling faces in Dallas. I think for whatever reason, that part of the equation is going well. And Klay, if he's going to be in an environment where he can thrive and be happy, that might be the thing that gets him out of his head. If he gets out of his head, then I think he'll shoot well, and I think the numbers might fall. He might meet this ADP. So I like this tier. I like tier 7, and I like tier 8. And you might have to like tier 7, and you might have to like tier 8. It might not be a choice, because there's only one Anthony Edwards on the board. And kind of everything else after that is a little bit crap. So you might have to like tier 7. You might have to like tier 8. And then in tier 9, we get Colin Sexton. We get Dante DiVincenzo. We get Brandon Pajemski. I like this tier a lot. I mean, Pajemski might not have the big season that the Warriors are talking about. And he might not have the oomph in him to have a top 75 year. He might string together enough games. He might be able to creep over the line that way. But overall, I think this is a player that's going to be productive. I think he's going to be forced into the offense the way that they're described. Can he get up 10 threes a game? I mean, man, he's going to have to start shooting them from half court or something, because I don't think he's going to be able to get 10 threes a game. That's going to be very tough for him to do. But the point is they're going to kind of force the action with him, and that's good for fantasy business. Dante DiVincenzo moved over to Minnesota. I don't think this is, first of all, he's the centerpiece of the trade, as far as I'm concerned. Second of all, he brings something they absolutely need. There's players that can kind of comp. Anthony Edwards is at his position. I think they'll give him enough minutes to make it work, and I really like Dante DiVincenzo. So I'm going to just say I like this. Colin Sexton, 119. Look, this guy's been top 75 for a while now. He's quietly good. I don't know if he'll have a problem in March and April. It hasn't been that much of a problem in the past. Could easily be a problem this season in the Colin Flagg's sweepstakes, Cooper Flag sweepstakes. I like him. At this price, I love all of these prices. I think what we've seen is we're building the case for, if you don't go Anthony Edwards for whatever reason, you are waiting, for the most part, on your shooting guard. ADP tier 10, Buddy Hield. Look, Buddy, he knows one thing in life, and that's shooting threes. And if he's getting open in a split action game, look, Buddy Hield could be good. There's a lot of reasons this could go south. Buddy Hield isn't exactly, calling his shots at the NBA level anymore. The Warriors just kind of grabbed a bunch of decent-ish low-end players and brought them in to kind of fill out the roster. And I actually kind of like the configuration. I think they're doing something weird in Golden State right now. It feels like Moneyball, where they're like, if we could just shoot enough threes and we'll do this. And then, hey, Kevin Looney, we want you to play small forward. So I don't know. It's weird out there. I like Buddy Hield. I think he could have a low-key big season. Am I going to bet my house on it? No, but he could have a low-key good season. Marcus Smart, 125. I think it's a great price to get Marcus Smart. Brett Campbell loves Marcus Smart. I think Marcus Smart in Memphis is one of the most intriguing things we didn't get to see last season. I just think his personality, their personality, the defensive mentality, what they could do defensively as a unit together. I mean, if Marcus Smart wants to get out because he's like the fifth wheel or whatever, maybe that won't work. But I really think that he's going to get in there and he's just going to have a decent-ish season. There's a lot of basketballs that are going to go other directions, but I think Marcus Smart can just cruise to this 125 and have some upside beyond that. Malik Monk drove if there was a player that was drafted the most on my squads last year, it might have been Malik Monk. And it was just a gimme. He was going at like 140, 150, 160 at times in drafts. That was easy. He is going to you get like my read on this situation without even calling a single person in Kingsland is that for him to take less money, he needed to be given more shots and more minutes. And it won't be a ton more shots and it won't be a ton more minutes, but it definitely had to be a part of that equation. So to that degree, I think, yes, there's going to be more Malik Monk. Now, DeMar DeRozan, the crowding effect there, absolutely, that's bad news. Like that's canceling out anything that you're getting on the shot side. And by the way, I think the market caught up on Monk. So now instead of being a plus EV, he is now kind of an even money guy in the back end of the draft. So I'm okay with drafting Malik Monk. I just don't know that you're going to get the kind of value that you got last season. Shaedon Sharpe at 132, I think better player than fantasy player to end of season concerns in Portland. I'm probably out on Shaedon Sharpe. Lou Dort, 136. I like Dort's game. I like the way he fits in OKC. I don't think he's going to be productive like, say, Caruso. I think his shots are the ones that come off the board. So other people can get shots, and other people are going to need to get shots because that team is super good. Nembhard at 136. Another like Shaedon Sharpe in the sense that he's a better reality player than he is a fantasy player right now. His play in the playoffs was outstanding. He's a starting point guard in this league. He's just going to be a late round guy in fantasy no matter what. And I think I'm not thrilled with the fact that he could play beneath the cut line if you take him in this tier at this location, and you might be looking somewhere else after that. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope at 140. I like the fact that he's been a top 75 guy throughout his career. I don't like the crowd in Orlando, but I do like that he got paid, and I do like that part of that negotiation probably included some safety on the shot side. Like, hey, we're going to make sure that you get enough shots to at least be sort of in the ballpark of where you were at with Denver. Now, not getting the ball fed to him by Nikola Jokic, that's also going to leave a mark. So I'm probably out on him in general. But at least he's a serviceable player with a past of being productive. I'd probably take him over Nembhard. I'd probably take him over Sharpe, and so on and so forth. So that, my friends, rounds out the last of the top, or probably the tier 10 here. And I think what we've learned is there are options later in drafts. There are options to fill out this section of your roster. And I would just say that at this point, you need to really figure out who in those bottom tiers you're comfortable with and start to mix and match them with your squads, because elsewhere in those second, third, and fourth tiers, the price and the juice might not be worth the squeeze. And I think this is a tough year for shooting guards in general, unless you want to consider going down the board, which is probably where I'm heading. Okay. Tomorrow, we're going to have a special guest on the pod. So tune in for that. Find out who he is. I don't know who he is. Who is it? Did I miss a meeting? Probably. Or was I there and I just can't remember? So check that out. And then draft guides out, B150's out for Sports Ethos 360 subscribers. All sports subscribers will get it on Monday. So check out our sales page for all that. Go to sportsethos.com and hit the premium button. You can get all your options there. Shout out Dr. A. Hope you're feeling better. Shout out Rick. Can't wait to have you on the show in a couple episodes. What else? Oh, shout out Andre. Doing a great job putting up with me. I love it. And thank you guys for all of your feedback. And I've gotten a lot of messages. That B150 intro, I wrote about the TOS. I wrote about sort of my generalized experience and you guys writing in and all your support. Like, honestly, this is a weird thing that we do, and getting the support from you guys might not think it matters so much, and maybe it shouldn't matter so much, but it really does. Like, when I get those emails and I hear about it, it's just like, I might be tired or I might be feeling the TOS. And when I have that happen, it's like a boost, and it just helps me get through the day. So anyway, thank you for that. That's going to do it for us. This has been Fantasy NBA Today, presented by Bet Online, a Sports Ethos presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, until next time, be well.